This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV. Now, the Teamsters Union ratified a 5-year contract with UPS today. It comes as one of the largest auto worker union votes on whether to authorize a strike as part of their contract negotiations. The UAW says 150,000 members could walk off the job at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis if a new agreement can't be reached when their contract expires on September 14th.
It's put pressure on President Biden, who, of course, calls himself the most pro-union president in American history. However, some auto workers are concerned that his push for electric vehicles could hurt them in the long run. It's all part of this. The UAW has yet announced who it is endorsing for president in 2024, we should note.
For more, Seth Harris joins us now. He was formerly President Biden's top labor advisor and is currently a senior fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University. Thank you so much for joining us, and also a fantastic day to have you on. There really is a ton of labor news. We have to start with UAW because that's the one that seems to draw a lot of consternation in the West Wing. Do you think we can see a strike?
I think a strike is becoming increasingly likely. The parties appear to be fairly far apart. The UAW, like the Teamsters at UPS, have essentially insisted on undoing all of the concessions that have been made over the years by their union to support the car companies. The car companies are making huge amounts of money, and the workers want their fair share now. So I think there's a lot of distance between the two parties, and that's the kind of situation where a strike becomes increasingly likely.
Should the administration be playing a role in this? We just went through a protracted affair with UPS in which the administration was not involved and not requested. It was a different story with Yellow, which has since gone out of business. You're part of the reason why the president claims to be the most union-friendly administration in American history. Will he be able to make that claim following what happens here?
I think he will. Remember that collective bargaining is a private dispute resolution system. Private parties negotiate and try to strike a deal. Now, the administration is involved in the negotiations between the UAW and the Big Three, mostly because there are meaningful public policy consequences to these negotiations. The president's climate agenda requires a transition to electric vehicles. There have been substantial investments made in the Inflation Reduction Act to help us to make that transition. But the president wants to make sure that those jobs are good quality union jobs in the electric vehicle sector. They want to make sure that workers have an opportunity to organize in that sector. And so I think that the president's monitoring it closely. He's urging the parties to negotiate, stay at the table, and try and come to a resolution.
This administration is going after the biggest industrial policy, and EVs at the center of it, since World War II. At the same time, as Joe says, he wants to be the most pro-union Labor Party president in modern history. How does he balance the two?
Well, he urges those folks who are getting federal dollars to make sure that the jobs that they're creating are good union jobs. And it's not just...
But the battery worker jobs are not, which is what the UAW has a problem with.
Well,
thousands of workers who work at these battery plants towards EVs are not on the same wage level as those that are working on assembly line for cars.
Not yet. So I think that if the UAW has an opportunity to organize and there's a fair opportunity and the companies remain neutral, and that'll be a part of the negotiation with the union, then there is an opportunity for those wages to go up in the battery plants. But let me also say it's not just the EV sector. We've seen a massive increase in private sector investment in manufacturing in the United States, largely because of the public investments that we have seen under the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law and the CHIPS and Sciences Act. So we're going to have a whole new semiconductor industry in America. The jobs in building those factories are largely going to be, or at least in part going to be, union jobs, and a lot of the people working in those plants will be union members. That's what the president is pushing for.
We had some important news today with the aforementioned UPS, where workers did approve that $30 billion labor contract. I wonder your thoughts, though, on the current tenor and posture of organized labor in this country becoming more aggressive. What we saw the Teamsters pull off with UPS might not have been possible a couple of years ago, and what we see the UAW demanding from the auto workers is far-reaching. We're getting to a point now when we hear commentary from Sean Fain and others where it sounds like the union actually doesn't care if they put a company out of business to make a point. Is that where we are?
No, I don't think they want to put anybody out of business, but they're sick of companies making profits hand over fist fist and not sharing that money with their workers. So that's what both Sean Fain at the UAW and Sean O'Brien at the Teamsters and also Fran Drescher at the actors and the leaders of the Writers Guild are saying is you can't scoop up all these profits and not share it with us. You can't look for ways to cut costs that put us out of work or slash our wages any longer. And that is the change that's happened. There is a rising worker activism, rising worker militancy in the United States, but that's because workers feel they've been screwed for a long time. They've been cheated for a long time. And now they want their fair share from their employers who, let's be honest, have plenty of money. They can afford to do it. The UPS showed that they were willing to make a deal that transferred $30 billion to their employees. Let's see if the big three automakers make the same kind of smart decision.
So you feel an uprising as well, though. You just see the motivations being different.
I think the motivation is just that workers saw during the pandemic that employers were not going to look out for them. They had to turn to one another to get the protection that they needed. And they saw these profits being scooped up and sent to Wall Street rather than to them. And they're putting their foot down. They want a fair share now. And we're seeing rising worker activism all across the United States. More strike activity. Yes, more strike activity than we've seen in 20 years.
I want to bring to you what something Sean Fain recently said. He said, I've cautioned everybody in Washington, D.C. that they better understand one thing. Our workers' experience right now with this EV transition, it is not a good thing. So when somebody else comes along and says, get ready to watch your jobs disappear, this is going to resonate. And former President Donald Trump has been making that case to auto workers, and he did so last week on Fox Business. Take a listen.
The electric cars are going to be made mostly in China.
Oh, it's a Chinese subsidy.
And
that's what it is.
You know, if I was a UAW worker, I would only vote for Trump because I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. We're going to make cars.
He is asking for their endorsement. They have yet to endorse anyone. They endorsed Biden in the last round. Who are they going to endorse this round?
There is zero chance that the UAW endorses Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the worst anti-labor president in modern history. I would include Ronald Reagan in that. He was the worst. Donald Trump was the worst. It's also false that these cars are going to be built in China. The Inflation Reduction Act invests in American-made cars. That's why we're seeing the manufacturing boom that we're seeing, EV factories being built through joint ventures of varying kinds. The question is whether or not the UAW will be able to represent those workers. I think ultimately they will. I think they'll win those elections, or they'll be able to organize without elections, and they will end up representing the lion's share of that industry. But that's going to require a big fight. That's going to require deals with the companies to remain neutral. And frankly, it's going to require the administration making clear that good jobs means union jobs.
What would you tell our viewers to watch for specifically on this UAW potential strike to get a sense of where this is going? How immediate is this?
The deadline is the middle of September.
Right, so we should know long before then where this is
I think we'll have a fairly clear indication, but these negotiations tend to go down to the last minute, and it gets more and more and more tense. I would say don't pay too much attention to what folks are saying publicly. Okay. That is for public consumption, it's for shareholder consumption, and it is for member consumption. What really matters is what's happening behind those negotiating room doors, and we're not really going to see all of that. President Fain has been very open about it. He's trying to be transparent with his members. I think we will get an indication if we begin to see, as we did with the Teamsters UPS negotiation, that issues begin to get settled. If more and more of the difficult issues are agreed to in a tentative agreement, that will be a sign that we're moving in the right direction. Haven't seen that yet. Seeing a lot of anger and rhetoric on both sides, but I think we'll move.
And we're less than a month away.
That's right. It's coming soon. That's great analysis, Seth. Thank you. Seth Harris, Senior Fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University, former top labor advisor for President Biden, with us at the table today.